Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villeries Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villeries provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Homeowners insurance increasing or deductible too high? Call, click, or come in. Save it, Dave. Dave Miette Insurance Agency.
For over 48 years, Southern Tires and Auto Repair has provided services across the New Orleans metro area. Southern Tires offers a range of tires for all vehicles and ATVs. We also have a full suite of auto repair options, including brake repair, rim repair, custom exhaust, steering and suspension, tire siping, and so much more. Southern Tires and Auto Repair, 2550 Hickory Avenue in Metairie.
Cnc Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, Cnc provides patient-centered care for your entire family. Cnc Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher, on a beautiful day here in Old New Orleans. Chamber of Commerce type day here in Old New Orleans. And of course, today's a great day to be able to talk a lot about what's going on here in terms of sports here in the state of Louisiana and of course the city of New Orleans. To break it down for us, live from our Pontchartrain Production Studios, is Mike Detillier of WWL Radio and of course Mike Detillier's Draft Guide as well. Mike, welcome back to the show. How are you, my friend?
Thank you, Eric. We got electricity, man. That's good.
That's a good thing, isn't it?
Man, because sometimes energy, it has the availability of Anthony Davis.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, here's the other part. They got a little pest control problem, right? What, squirrels?
Hey, listen, I live on
rats?
the bayou. I ain't never had my electricity go out because of no animal.
Amen.
And I walk out my house every morning. They got two eagles that are flying around that could have took care of that squirrel or rabbit or anything else that gets around there.
It's unbelievable. The excuses are ridiculous. But again, we both doing live shows yesterday during afternoon drive.
Yeah, and that was interesting.
It was tough. It was tough. I mean, again, at the end of my show was cut off. You know, the internet. We couldn't even post our podcast. You were in a situation you didn't have air conditioning, and of course,
no AC. We had no ability to take calls, no ability to get guests. But you know, me and Aber, the 2 hours for us. That's not a big jam. Now, if it's 4 hours, that might be a different story. But I think we could possibly stretch that out.
Right. Tell the folks about WWL. Also, again, I'm getting it. People want to know when your draft guide is coming out as well.
Okay. You know, I'm on Monday through Thursday, 4 to 6. Now tonight, a little bit later. You know, I'll fill in every once in a while. So yeah, it's going well. Me and Bobby and Christian, and so we work out enough time that all of us get a chance to talk about certain things and try to get as many diverse guests as I can. Sure. You know, because and that was one of the reasons why I think they hired me. Was, you know, I can connect the dots a little bit here and there, and so we've been able to do that. I made the decision in 2021. It would be the last year I did the draft book. Okay. And so this will be the first year I haven't done it. So a lot of the information we'll have will be on WWL's site. Okay. And will be on my Twitter, Facebook, same as WWL. So, no, I made up 36 years.
Wow, well, that's a long time.
I said, you know what, enough was enough with it. And as much as I love doing it, I'm not real sure the draft book loved me back, so to speak. And you know, you hit a lot of different things, from mailing to deadlines, and now the NFL pushes everything so far back and you're trying to get it to them a couple weeks ahead of time. You have a time to go through the draft book, and I said, that's it. I said, this was it. 2021 was the last kind of Mohican for me, and I enjoyed it, and I appreciated everybody that supported me throughout the years doing it. And
a lot of people are gonna be freaking out come draft day.
I've gotten a lot of calls. Well, what am I gonna do? I don't know what to tell you. But
would you find the information on WWL's website?
Yes,
for the most part?
And we just posted something Monday.
What, top 90, right, players?
Top 90 players, and it's also on my Twitter and Facebook site. You can see it there also. And so it's my ratings, not anybody else's.
Sure, always has been.
Just has always been that way. How I feel they should be listed, not how they get selected.
Right.
And that was always the big flip of the coin for me. Should I put it more like they gonna get picked, or how I rate them? And I always used to try to grab that heavy medium of it to do a little bit of both, and that's the tricky part of it.
Yeah, the great thing about the book was I keep them, right? So I'm able to go back and look at, a player that may be in New Orleans or elsewhere. Maybe it's a local player, maybe it's not, and see how they've done as opposed to, again, what the scouting report was on the book. I'll go back and see, and I've done that quite often. So I'm sure a lot of people do that as well.
Yeah, Mike Keith, he was the first guy that thought of doing pregame and had me on, and that was his original, man, this is like 30 years ago. When Mike was the voice of the Tennessee Volunteers.
Okay.
And he was like, I want you to break down the opponent and where you think they'll get picked in the draft. So all of a sudden now, let's go to Nashville, and he comes up with the idea, hey, do some pregame, and let's do a segment on where you had that guy going, and in comparison to what he's been, and there's some good and some bad with it, and he'll always tell me this is a good one, and he'll say what kind of missed here, or what did you not see here, or what did you see in this player that you had him rated a lot higher than where he went, and he turned out to be pretty good. So we've done segments on that for, man, I can't tell you how many years, and so it's worked out great.
It's always been great information. I know a lot of people are going to miss it, no doubt about it. But again, you got your hands full right now.
Yeah, I got a few things juggling, and in more ways than one.
No doubt. Okay, well, we found out today, speaking Saints, Cam Jordan, Tenyo Passanio restructured their contracts. Again, alleviates about $12.4 million worth of cap space. Saints are still $21 million over. Mike, they'll be over with. They could literally do that with just Marshawn Lattimore's contract. So again, when you look at it, they'll be under the cap with money to spare to be able to spend. By next week, they have to be under the cap by the 16th, which is the first day of free agency. Legal tampering period starts next Monday, 14th through the 16th.
Yeah, that legal tampering period. Come on.
Yeah,
that's long been broken.
Come on, we know it.
We all know that. That's an unwritten rule that's written in invisible ink. But one thing, Mickey has come on with us a number of times and has sort of explained how they do a contract. And he said in today's world, you always want to have some leeway financially that you can move money around without having them take a pay cut.
Yes.
And so he said, that's important to the player because they're going to look at that and say, wait a minute here, I don't want to do this and that. So he says, there's always a little bit of leeway in doing these contracts. And Kai Harley, who is really the hidden gem in that organization, doesn't get a lot of publicity, but he's the guy that works these contracts. No, Mickey oversees it. And he's always told us every one of those contracts has a way for us to maneuver money.
There's a relief valve.
Now, you might disagree with the credit card mentality of kicking it down the road, but eventually, and we had Randy Mueller on. I got Randy to come on, and he was like, there's good and bad with that, but he said eventually, because of the TV money, you give that a couple more years, you won't have to be cutting too many salaries. You won't have to be organizing that in the same way you do now because the money will be in place for it. Just last year was different because what happened with the pandemic, you didn't get to share as much money. This year, it's almost back up to the exact same figure. So
the percentage-wise is the same way.
And so you have some maneuverability with contracts that you don't have to cut a player or release them. Unless you want to.
Sure.
at this particular stage. And you know what the strength of your team is. It's defensively and on special teams.
Right.
The real work now is what happens on offense.
Right, no doubt. Now, that can come back to bite you a bit, based on the dummy years that are added to the contract, because again, a lot of times it's a roster bonus, or again, your base salary, which is converted to a signing bonus. They put 5 years on that so they can amortize that over time. That by doing that, a lot of times they're putting these dummy years at the end of the contract. Happened with Teron Armstead. $13 million in dead money will become due if he ultimately signs with another team. Neither Armstead nor Marcus Williams were tagged this week, so both will have an opportunity again to go into as an unrestricted free agent into free agency. Your thoughts on if either one or will be back, and if so, what type of deals do you think they'll be on?
I think both will test the market
right
at this stage, because if you'd have done a deal, you'd have done it already.
Done already. I agree.
In that particular part, I think Marcus Williams is elsewhere.
Okay.
In 2022, to be honest with you, Armstead, I think you still got a shot. But once that money comes rolling in, and a lot of these, it's not the decision based on the player. The agent says, hey, I know we can get more money somewhere else. And so we got to think about it. Let's test the market.
Right.
Armstead, to me, would be the major loss.
Me too.
I just look at it. Listen, the Greeks settled this years ago. I had a chance to keep a really talented big man, really talented smaller guy. Hey, give me the big dude.
Sure.
Every time.
Right.
Yes. He has missed time every year with injuries. Other than his rookie season, he's missed time every season because of injuries. But he's arguably one of the top 3 left tackles in the game.
Agreed.
And still,
even at 31,
at his age, he still has 6-7 years he could play.
It's a prime for offensive linemen, right? When you get to your early 30s.
Look at Trent Williams, okay? Right. Him in Washington, and that was a lot of things happening there. Unlike with Teron, that's
right.
Teron loves it here and loves the system that's in. But with Trent, it was more him and the organization had come to a point that he wasn't going to play there anymore. He gets dealt off, to San Francisco. Did he look his age last year? He was terrific.
Right.
And he's another guy that has missed time because of injuries.
Right.
And he's older than Teron at this stage. So that would be a major loss for this football team.
I agree. I think that have to do
major
to keep him. Miami, Cincinnati, 2 teams that rumored that again will be going after him. That could maybe again bring up the cost of what he would be getting per year.
Miami is the team to watch.
Yeah, they got money.
They have money. Also, to your tax rate in Florida.
Right.
With no state tax.
No state tax, right.
And so, if you count money.
Oh, yeah, money's money.
Money is money. No matter where you went to college at. Money's money. You do learn that. Cincinnati, I think, will spend a lot more money on the interior of their offensive line. Center, guards. Because if you saw where pressure was coming from, it was right up the middle.
But I did see Prince as a little bit of a turnstile as well.
Prince will always be a turnstile.
Right.
He'll get a little bit better, but come on, he is what he is.
Right.
But I think if they spend considerable money, it'll be at center guard.
Right.
And maybe draft a tackle.
Okay. And there's some pretty good tackle. We'll get into that a little later.
Yeah, and to say it now, half the first round will be either offensive, defensive lineman.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Half of it.
Yeah.
And that's shocking, but yet it's accurate.
Come on, it's a big man's game, right?
It is a big man's game, but not every year you get that type quality.
Right.
Line.
And you don't have the quarterbacks, we'll get into that a little bit later, that you normally would have, which would be pushed up the draft. Let's talk about Marcus Williams. Jamal Adams makes 17.6. Harrison Smith, 16.1. Justin Simmons, 515.2. Buda Baker, 14.7. He had a chance to be able to get among the one of the top safety contracts last year. He turned it down. He wanted to be the highest paid safety. He's not worth Jamal Adams' money, in my opinion. Not even close.
No safety in this league is worth Jamal Adams' money. That's just the way I look at it. I would not pay $17 million for a safety. I'd pay that for a corner, but I'm not paying that for a safety. So that's why I've always felt you didn't come to a long-term deal. You're not going to do it now. It's over with, and he'll be elsewhere. The only problem that is, and I look short-term and long-term for everything. maybe I shouldn't, but that's just the way it is. Within 2 years, you're going to have a different starting free safety and strong safety.
Right.
Because next year,
Malcolm Jenkins.
Malcolm won't be here.
Right. Well, you could see him slowing down last year. And that leads me again to my next question. All the rumors about Tyrann Mathieu, and of course he made $14 million last year, 3 years, $42 million on his last contract with the Kansas City Chiefs. He's a different player than Marcus Williams, but he does bring the type of leadership that a Malcolm Jenkins brings. Do you hear these rumors? You're buying into them? You think there's an opportunity to bring him back? And if they do, how do they play him?
I think there's an opportunity there. Now, there's an age difference between Marcus Williams and
29 and 25, yes.
Right, but him and Mathieu. So I think you'd have to think about that. How much you're going to pay a 30-year-old safety at this stage?
Right.
Yeah, come on, it is what it is. Right. It's a young man's game where if I'm going to pay a lot of money, it's either going to be for a left tackle or a quarterback if he's got age.
Right.
Or are you going to give a 30-year-old wide receiver or running back all kind of money? No. So how do they value that safety position? Tyrann's going to get a lot of money from somebody.
Right.
Will it be the Saints? I'm saying probably not at this stage.
Well, that brings you to P.J. Williams, who played a little bit of safety for them when Williams had gone down. Is he a guy that they go back and re-sign for the possibility of being a starting safety, or do they look elsewhere on the market?
They look elsewhere in the market, and this is where I think the draft will come into play.
Okay.
You think about Marcus, he gets picked, and he wasn't no backup. He was a starter.
Medium.
Day one.
Right.
He was starting, and I think that they'll look at that come draft time. Now I can see him signing a middle range safety to bring in. PJ is a guy I want back.
Me too.
Okay, you got him at a pretty good price at that 2.5
3 years,
into that. So now that's double now.
Right.
You're gonna have to pay him $5 to $6 million.
Right.
But it's what he does for your team. He is primarily a nickel corner or a dime safety.
Yes.
But he has the ability, if you need to in a pinch, you can play him out wide. Man, he fills a lot of roles.
Very flexible.
On this team. And we'll talk a little bit more about draft time, but I'll watch Cardell Flott at LSU.
Yes.
He's the exact same guy.
Okay.
Exact same type player. So I think you want to bring PJ back. He understands this system defensively very well. He can play 3 different positions, but I'm drafting one very high.
Especially if you lose Williams. You may have to do the same thing if you lose Armstead as well. Look to the draft, but you do have Landon Young, you have Hurst, and probably going to flip Ramczyk over if ultimately again he moves on, right?
Yeah, because would be my thought would be if you lose Tyrann to move Ryan to left tackle. Hurst can play the right tackle, and he's best suited on the right side to begin with. Then if you draft a guy in the first 2 rounds, you don't have to shove him into the lineup right away.
Yes.
You can maybe give him a little time if he needed it.
Right.
Now, some guys can walk right in and play. So it does give you some options, but if you look on there, first things first, they got to clear up the quarterback situation.
Yes.
With a veteran quarterback. And then whatever happens with Armstead will dictate what happens in round 1 and 2. More than any other situation.
Yes, I agree.
That dictates what happens with Tyrann.
Yeah. All right, let's talk quarterback because that's the big one. A lot of movement within the quarterback within quarterbacks in the league this week. There's rumors of Jimmy Garoppolo, who's coming off shoulder surgery on his throwing arm and his thumb injury, being maybe thought to be traded to the Saints. Jameis Winston is out there. Teddy Bridgewater's out there. Let's talk about draft picks. Where do they go?
I think they really want to bring in a veteran quarterback.
Okay.
And I really think that it's just not smoke. I think there has been talks between the Saints and the 49ers.
Okay.
Going to the studio yesterday, I got phone calls from 3 different Bay, San Francisco radio stations to say, hey, listen, come on. We think something's up. Now, if you get one, that's one thing. I got from 3.
Right.
So they're hearing it from that end, that there is talk. Now, sometimes talk doesn't lead to a deal.
Sure.
Sometimes it's just talk, and you can't come up with a deal. But I'll never forget after Dennis Allen's press conference, he came sit with us radio-wise, and he did a segment, and I asked him about what are you looking for in a quarterback. He said, first things first, I'm looking for a proven winner.
Right.
Okay, you might say, man, Jimmy Garoppolo, he ain't that good. And, you know, he's not a clutch player, doesn't have a super strong arm, he can't do this, can't do that.
Yes.
One thing you can't take away from him, that son of a gun wins. He led a team to the Super Bowl. You look last year, they go to Green Bay. Now, not that he played a huge part in that, but he was there in that spot. I think he would be on the top of their list.
Okay.
Now, if it doesn't
even coming
work,
off the surgeries?
even coming off the surgery. Hey, look, they took a big chance on Drew Brees, who had a much more difficult surgery to come back from than what Garoppolo did. And everybody thought the tie-in was Sean and Garoppolo, same college.
Right.
Okay, I could just go back to that draft day. They had an opportunity to draft him and didn't.
Right.
They went with Stanley Jean-Baptiste instead.
Right. Yeah.
Okay? Now, this is where there's some differing deals here. Some people who were there at that time say they really didn't make a huge effort to try to get back in to get Garoppolo, and I've had some tell me just the opposite. So somebody's lying.
Yes.
One of the two on this part. But I do think there are people in that organization that really like Garoppolo.
Okay.
Not just Sean.
At what cost?
At this stage, seeing what the Commanders gave up for Wentz, and I would have never given up that for him. I think he's not going to make it. I look at Carson, and he was a terrific prospect. And then he hurts his back and his knee, same year, which had he stayed healthy, the Super Bowl run year that they actually won it with Nick Foles, he'd have been MVP of the NFL that year.
He played well.
He's never been the same since.
No.
And last year, you look at it, and Rick Venturi and I had a long talk about this. He was not the choice of Jimmy Irsay, the owner. But Frank Wright, who had coached him in Philly, had been his quarterback coach, offensive coordinator, said, I want him, and he can win for us. Okay, they roll through the season, and he starts off slow, but really does well in like 9 games. Hell, I could do pretty good too. I can turn around and hand that football off to Jonathan Taylor. You know, he's protecting me.
Yes.
And his percentages were pretty good. The last 2 games, what happened? He was last in the league in completion percentage.
Right.
And they lose the final game to Jacksonville, which knocks them out of the playoffs. So I think Carson, understanding Jimmy Irsay is sort of a live wire, no insulation, goes to him and says, hey, boss, I need to talk to you. I don't want to talk to you.
Right.
Okay, when that happened, that was it.
Yep.
End of story, he was out of there. So I think the Colts, as we speak here on Thursday, I think they're also in that Jimmy Garoppolo sweepstakes also. What happens in Pittsburgh? There is no quarterback there either. Are you sold with Sam Darnold if you're in Carolina? You got to pay him.
Right.
And that's the only reason you're keeping him is because you're on the books for him. And it is hard for the head coach to go back and tell the richest owner in the NFL, who's worth about $16 billion with a B.
Right.
That, hey, I made a mistake, boss. You made a mistake? I might have made one higher than you.
Right.
And so I think Garoppolo is the next domino to fall. And then that will separate a lot. And then the wild card certainly with Deshaun Watson. Because if his legal issues are cleared, man, they got a lot of people that be willing to give up a lot for a 26-year-old quarterback going on 27 and in the prime of his career, and arguably when his last season, he was one of the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks in the NFL.
There's no doubt. I want to touch on both those. First of all, do you get into a bidding war for Garoppolo? Now, look, you got a chance with, if you lose Armstead and Williams, you're going to get 2 compensatory picks, probably 3rd, 4th round.
So you got extra picks.
So you got extra picks. And that's the first thing when I'm looking at this going, okay, they're thinking, if it's mid-round picks, I got extra picks coming in if I can't sign these 2 guys. And they pretty much know what their cost parameters are for Williams and Armstead and what they're willing to pay them.
Yeah.
So on the back end, they're looking at we picking up compensatory picks there. But do you overpay there? Do you come up with? Do you get into a bidding war? And then when you talk about the situation with Deshaun Watson, with a female owner and the issues he's had, do you think Miss Benson's going to sign off on him being the next quarterback of the New Orleans Saints? That's always been my question.
The thing with Watson is we've heard nothing from him.
Right.
Okay. 22 lawsuits tell you one thing.
Come on. There's a pattern.
That there's a little bit of a pattern. And I don't know every detail.
No, and nobody does.
Into this point. I think some sort of jumped on the bandwagon, but not 22. Come on. That's way too many at this stage of the game. And the fact that he didn't try to fight it,
right,
in different quarters, tells me the smoke, the fire there.
Sure, of course.
But, Eric, we all know one thing. Talented people in this world get more chances. You might not like it, and you might not like to hear it, but talented people get more chances than people who are average in this world.
A female owner with, again, somebody who's been accused of, again, 22 counts of sexual assault, I just don't know how that jives here in New Orleans. Now, look, the talent, come on. He could be a quarterback for the next 10 years if he keeps his nose clean. I just don't know how that goes over, in
that
big
part
office.
That part I could just speculate.
Right, all of us.
On exactly how that would work out. Jimmy G's got a little bit of a history too.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, Jameis Winston had a history.
Also, I was going to say that. So you got. But Jimmy was a single guy, okay? And so if he decides to date somebody in the adult entertainment world, hey, God bless him. That's his prerogative to do. It's different than this.
Right. And it's
Watson.
different even than when Jameis with, again, the Uber driver, which, again, we've seen him change and grow up. But again, the question is when you have 22.
That's a lot.
Okay, and then you have
even if half of them or not, that's still a lot.
Okay, and you have a female owner, and how does that go over? That's my only question. Not the talent. Ultimately, the lawsuits are going to be settled, right? So far,
ultimately,
there's been no criminal charges.
So if there's no criminal charges, this becomes a civil suit where money is going to be settled.
But the NFL doesn't care about criminal or civil. They're also going to issue their punishment, because we've seen that in the past as well.
Yeah, the other thing about that is how they feel about his 1 year not playing at all.
Right.
Was
that enough of a suspension?
No, I think he's going to get more than that.
Me too.
I think he's going to get more than that. So if you trade for Watson, you better not expect that he's going to be in the lineup on the opening day.
No way.
In that particular spot. And you better have a coach that's willing to have to talk about it every day.
You're right. It's going to, and again, teammate, a team that's strong enough in that locker with the culture that can handle that every day.
I think that they have that element.
I agree with you.
They have that element. Dennis being a new coach, do you want to tangle with that particular deal?
Well, I mean, it's hard to turn away from talent, but again, I think a lot of this comes from the lady that's in the front office. I mean, how does she feel about it, the one that's signing the checks right now?
Well, the other part that's even crazier about this is you go back to last year around the trade deadline, that the NFL gave Stephen Ross, who's a shady character by any stretch of the imagination, he should be banned from the NFL if those allegations that he was trying to pay a coach to throw a game.
I agree.
Listen, Calvin Ridley wasn't real smart doing what he was doing. And he deserves the 1 year suspension.
Absolutely deserves it.
You know it. When you sign that contract and you are lectured every year, you cannot gamble on pro football.
There's a precedent too. I mean, you go back to Karras and Horning. Right. There's a precedent there.
Okay, and we both know he's not the only one gambling on a game, but he was the only one dumb enough to gamble it on his own name.
Right.
Okay, other guys are smart enough to do it somewhere else.
Of course, their buddies doing it for them.
Yeah, exactly. And so, Eric, I think it's a tricky situation. But if Ross asks the commissioner, "Can I speak to him? Because I'm interested in trading for him," and the commissioner gave him permission to speak to him.
Sure.
But at that time, he had not anything cleared, and so no deal was made with the Dolphins. That tells me the NFL is pretty forgiving, right?
Well, they always are when it comes to talent. I mean, again,
always has
come
been
on.
that way.
You've had people have been involved in vehicle homicide, and they've been back on the field. So we've seen that before.
But I think now it's a much more sensitive issue
right
to the league because of image.
Right. Well, if they're talking about
ever before, but the bad part is the owners are allowed to do what they want to do, and the players aren't.
That's the point. At some point, there's going to be a revolt on that. You cannot have a situation like you have in Washington, with again the sexual assault and the cover-up there. Stephen Ross in Miami, and the situation there with again incentivizing coaches to be able to lose games. Again, they want to talk about the shield, the integrity of the league. It starts with ownership. Both those guys should have the ownership taken away from them at this point. I mean, but again, do the owners have the guts enough to do it? And I'll say no.
Okay, this is something, and this goes back quite a few years now. Pete Rozelle came down here, and you could tell Pete was toward the end of his life.
Okay.
And him and Buddy Diliberto had long-time ties.
They did.
At one time, Buddy told me I could get on the phone and call up, and I could talk to Pete on the phone. It was nothing to do. Not today. Right. You try that with the guy. They got you never get that. And you're right. Insulation. And one of the things when we kind of got together to talk, he brought it up before Diliberto did. He said, "Buddy, remember you used to call me all the time about you got to get rid of John Meekum." And he said, "What did I always tell you? I can't fire a bad owner because the other owners really control it."
Right.
And that's what's happening today.
But that's a big difference between bad owner and a guy that, again, has an unsafe workplace, or a guy that's incentivizing a coach to lose, which is the integrity of the game.
Here's the deal. The commissioner is actually sort of telling you, I got no control over
he doesn't. It's the owners that have to stand up and do this.
And the owners are not going to do it because, hey, you got owners that
one day they might be expelling me.
Because somebody might dig up something.
Right.
What occurred yesterday with Jerry Jones in that situation.
Right.
What's happened with Robert Kraft in that situation.
Right. Of course.
So, is Robert Kraft going to come out and say, man, I'm against Deshaun Watson?
Right. Well, so again, the players here have a beef.
They got a big beef.
They got a beef here, okay? That there are two sets of rules here in the NFL. Again, if the player does something, they're suspended and losing money. If an owner does something, they're insulated from any punishment.
And that is exactly correct. And you can't tell me that they haven't had owners in the past and present that gamble on football.
Right. No, I would agree. I'm sure. Again, but again, I mean, looking at what's going on in Washington, the continued cover-up is.
And how is Danny Snyder almost in a vacuum that can't be touched?
Can't be touched. Cannot be touched. Right.
But they threw John Gruden
under the bus.
Right. For stuff he should have never made those comments.
Absolutely not.
Come on,
but to only dig those comments up
and nothing else.
Right. Come on.
Tells you
that's Goodell having a beef,
a scapegoat
with Gruden. No different than what we saw in New Orleans with Sean Payton.
And in essence, he made a mortal sin. He criticized the boss that's putting money in our pockets. And so, you know what? You got to go.
Right.
I don't care what you said.
He has a long memory.
Yeah.
Goodell has a long memory.
And that particular thing, you had the beef, and you made comments about the boss that's making us rich.
Right.
And not millionaires. You ain't buying no team for millions today.
Billions.
It's billions today.
Right. I got to take a break, but I want to come back to the Saints. I want to come back to the draft. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Mike Detillier of WWL Radio is our guest. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Mike Detillier of WWL Radio is our guest. Want to say this once again. Mike has announced on the show he is not doing his draft guide this year. Anybody wants to find out about Mike's grades on the players can go to the WWL website. On Mike's Twitter or Facebook pages also have that information. But again, I want to give that out to you guys. All right, we've been talking quarterback. We talked about situation again, the double standard in the NFL between players and coaches. Let's get back to Jameis Winston.
We got caught in the
we
off ramp.
but it was, look, I thought that was a great conversation.
No, and I think it is relevant.
Right, absolutely.
About how players are one thing,
right.
Owners are another, and it goes to show you that boss that boss is still a boss.
Absolutely, and it was on my rundown too, Mike. So we were going to get to it eventually. Let's talk Jameis Winston. What do you think the feeling in the building is about him? If there is a flirtation with a Jimmy Garoppolo, what does that mean for Jameis Winston? See, I don't believe he's going to get a one-year deal with Jameis Winston this time around. I think he's got a multi-year deal. He's lost money over the last couple of years with, again, these prove-it-to-me deals. Even though he's got 7 games under his belt with the Saints, they've got him 2 years in the building. I've been on record as saying I don't think that Sean Payton walks if he's got a franchise quarterback in that building. And I think a lot of people in this town feel the same way. Well, again, I'm not trying to throw shade on Jameis. It is what it is. But when you shake it all out at the end of the day on who will be available, where's Jameis stack up in where the Saints are looking for the next quarterback?
Well, I think, listen, you got to put aside any hard feelings that maybe, and that's no maybe, I think there is talk with Garoppolo. I think you got to put that aside. Business is business.
Business is business. I agree.
And that sort of thing. And whatever you might think about Jimmy G or Jameis or Teddy or whatever, my thing is, the difference is Jameis is going to have many more suitors now than he did 2 years ago.
I agree. There's going to be a market for him.
There's going to be a big market because now half the teams in the NFL are looking to replace their quarterbacks.
It's a different landscape.
Totally different. And so where does that leave him? It gives him a little bit of leverage to say, man, this 1 year deal, I'm not taking that.
Come on.
You're going to give me a multi-year deal because I can get that in Pittsburgh.
Right.
Or maybe I can get that in Indianapolis. Or maybe I can get that somewhere else.
Right.
And so, or Seattle.
Yeah, no doubt. Come on.
Because if you really believe Drew Lock is going to win it for you, and I like Drew coming out. I really did.
Right.
He had all the stuff you were looking for, but between the years, you can tell he doesn't process it very, very well. You can see that very quickly. With Jameis, his progression last year, there were ups and downs. Listen, let's be real. There were ups and downs with it. That the market is going to be there for him better. It's going to be price. Who's willing to give him the baton and say, you the guy?
Right.
The X factor here, I'll say, I think is Atlanta. Because of one reason, the connection with Terry Fontenot.
Okay.
And Atlanta knows they have 1 year with Matt Ryan. And there are ties, house-wise, so to speak.
Yes.
In the Atlanta area with Jameis.
Okay.
So Atlanta could be one of those teams.
That's the first I've heard of Atlanta mentioned.
Laying in the woods like the sniper to maybe pick it off, saying, you know, we looking down the road. And you can't do anything with Ryan this year.
Right.
$44 million. You can't fool with that.
You're stuck with him. Right.
But what happens down the road, and I look at this draft class and say, is any of those guys going to turn us around? So I think all of this leads to plus for Jameis.
Right.
A draft class that's not stacked with talent at quarterback. A dwindling market now, because once Garoppolo goes, now he becomes the guy.
Yeah.
He becomes the main guy that I think other teams who maybe inquired or spoke to San Francisco about Jimmy G.
Yeah.
And we're doing this on the Thursday, so who knows? Within 24 hours or within 2 hours, this deal could be done with Jimmy, with somebody. Jameis becomes high priority for not just the Saints.
Right. At least 3 or 4 teams.
At least a couple of 3 other teams.
I would agree.
And that raises his financial capital.
Yes. There's no other way around it. He got $1 million last year, $6.5 million in incentives. I'm not sure, again, how many of those incentives he reached, because he only played 7 games, but he's going to get more money this year. I don't think there's any doubt about it, and he's going to get a longer deal. Pardon me. Running back. With Kamara's issues, I got to believe running back has to be a priority for this team, with again, an aging Mark Ingram, and not knowing, again, how many games you're going to have Kamara in the fold. I've talked about Leonard Fournette at Tampa, bringing him back home. He can obviously, you know him as well as anybody. He can run the football between the tackles. He can catch the ball. He can protect the quarterback.
Much better as a receiver.
Okay. He could fit with Kamara in this backfield. Plus, you're weakening the Tampa Bay Bucs. Look, they've already tagged Godwin. There's no chance of getting a guy like that. Is it a NFL veteran they're going to go after at the running back position, or are they going to draft one? Because let's face it, Tony Jones, the guys at the end of the roster, they made no impact last year. They've got to get somebody, especially with the unknown with Kamara. Where do you think they go?
I don't think they spend a lot of money on a halfback, so that would eliminate Leonard.
You think that eliminates Fournette?
I think it eliminates. Because the one thing with Mickey, he has sort of tried to balance the scales here financially. You know you in with Kamara for quite some bit of money and for years. Right. Plural.
I mean, just this year is plural. Number.
And you're going to miss him for, and I said the minimum 8 games. Minimum 8 games. There is not a running back worth a first-round pick. I think there are a couple going round 2. Where you can find some good depth is in the 3rd, 4th round.
Guys that are ready to play now?
Ready to play now. And I look for a guy, listen, I'm not going to find another Alvin Kamara.
Right, of course not.
Okay, that happened, and you to get him in round 3 was unbelievable for you to get him. But I want somebody that can do the same things he can do. I know they can't do it as well, but as a receiver coming out the backfield, can carry the football that 12 to 15 times. We know Ingram's going to get touches. They like Tony Jones, so he's going to get some. But a similar type player, not of the same talent, because you're not going to find that guy.
The same ilk.
But the same ilk. And I think you use the draft for that.
Okay. Tight end. They need
get a veteran.
They need a veteran tight end. Now, Mickey has said mid-level to low-level free agents. That's what they're looking for. They're not going to break the bank here. They need veteran wide receiver. They need to draft a wide receiver. What direction do you think they go?
I think wide receiver, it's more draft-oriented.
Okay.
I could see them signing a veteran, but it's not going to be a high-priced veteran.
Okay.
And I see them using multiple picks early on receivers. Tight end, I really believe they will sign a veteran tight end. A veteran one.
I agree.
And draft one later in the draft.
So you think they'll draft as well?
I think they'll draft one as well. I'm not convinced any of these, I think they still have hope. Maybe Troutman can play a little bit for them. They just signed Jawan Johnson back.
Yes.
And he's sort of a flex guy. But I think that if they're going to spend money, it won't be on a running back veteran-wise.
But it'll be
a tight end.
Okay. You kind of teased it a little bit earlier. Quarterbacks in this draft that you think either have an opportunity to be able to come into the league and be a starter, or again, maybe a guy that might take a couple of years, but ultimately, again, can come in and be an NFL starter.
I think there are 3 first-round pick quarterbacks. I think the most NFL ready is Kenny Pickett. From Pittsburgh. And
do you worry about the hand size? What everybody was talking about?
I ain't worried about that. He's double jointed and that sort of thing. And so, man, listen, everybody made a big thing about Joe Burrow and his hand size. And Joe, if you knew him a little bit, that he kind of tagged everybody with that, I'm fixing to retire with that 9-inch hand.
It didn't bother him.
And it didn't bother him. Kenny Pickett is more pro-ready than anybody in this draft class, ready to play. He's been that 3.5-year starter, smart kid, well-built, can throw the ball really well, short intermediate, and he's got enough arm strength. He can throw the deep ball pretty well, too. And you got to look at where he played. He ain't playing in no great weather conditions in November.
Pitt's tough.
In Pittsburgh, and who he's playing against. They don't have great weather. So he's played in those type weather games. He's done very well there, really sharp young man. And so I think he's a top dozen pick. Now, you might say he's getting picked way too early. Okay, that's what they call supply and demand.
Yes.
And I think the same thing will happen to Malik Willis from Liberty. I think of all the quarterbacks in this draft class, he is the most gifted.
Right.
He's built like a linebacker. When you walk up to him, wow, you play quarterback? And really smart young man. That jumps out at me, is that he is so smart, a great leader.
Athletic.
He is a lightning rod as a leader. Where I see the deficiency with Willis is he is much more comfortable throwing on the move than he is in the pocket.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget Terry Bradshaw telling me this years ago. He said, you know what broke me from being a running quarterback? I got hit.
Yeah.
I learned one thing, I'm staying in that pocket. Because if I start running, they got guys that can track me down.
Right.
You watched in the Senior Bowl, and Malik made plays, but he did it running. His first guy's not open. Man, he pulled that ball down, he took off.
Right.
And, okay, you can do a little bit of that in the NFL until you get your clock clean.
Yeah.
And so you understand he's not ready for prime time yet.
Right.
But somewhere down the line, he is going to be a really good player in this league. But it's not. So are the Saints are going to draft him and say, okay, you got it this year, win it for us?
Right.
I don't see that.
No.
And I think he'll be off the board by the time the Saints pick.
And there's a bridge guy there. All right, let me throw a wild card.
And so the Teddy Bridgewater, as you, and it's no pun.
No, but it's the truth.
But it's the truth. Could he be the bridge to the next guy?
Right.
And then Matt Corral, here's my scenario of what happens there. I think Seattle takes that first-round pick they got from Denver, trades back. Look at the connection between Seattle and Matt Corral. Lane Kiffin, who was Pete's offensive coordinator and wide receivers coach, knew all about Matt Corral. We had Ed Ogeron on with us last week. Ed was like, I said, if he's there, when the Saints pick, he said, Mike, I don't even blink. I pick him. He said, man, super tough. He gave us all kind of trouble. He said, I hated to play against him, but I'm glad he's gone. But he said, man, he is really talented. Now, he's a smaller quarterback. Okay? And Eric, he found out one thing that's really sometimes you see it in a boxer last year. He found out he could take a shot. It's almost like a boxer that finds out I can take a punch good. I'm going to keep running it. Pow, pow. What happened? By midseason, he wasn't the same guy. He was fighting injuries, and he had taken some big shots. That he measured taller and weighed more surprised me. He came to Manning. I'd have bet a lot of money he wasn't over 6'1". And he certainly wasn't 210 pounds back then. I would say he was 190 pounds at best. So he's put on quite a bit of weight. How he can hold it, but he's a great leader, can move around the pocket extremely well. He's played in that RPO system, and would it fit well with what Seattle does, but the connection is there. And so that's why I think those three will be first-round pick quarterbacks. And I think the most ready is Pickett. The most talented is Willis.
Okay. I want to get to LSU. I want to talk about that. Let me run through some quick stuff real quick for you guys. All right. First of all, we're in college basketball tournament time. LSU 21-10. They're 9-9. They're fifth in the SEC. They're actually playing right now against Missouri in the SEC tournament opener. Tulane is 13-14. They're 10-8. They ended up fifth in the AAC. They'll play Temple on Friday night in the first game of their conference. UNO 17-11, 10-4. They're in third place. They play McNeese tonight at 7:30. Again, remember Nichols is the champion of the Southland. They're the first seed. Southeastern, due to again tiebreakers, became the second seed. They're in second place. Loyola, 31-1, 17-1 over in their conference, number 2 in the NIA, but number 1 seed in the NIA tournament. They are SSAC regular season tournament champions. Round 1 is at Delvin Fieldhouse, the Fulgham Arena. Benedictine University at Mesa is their opponent. Last night, The Pels lose to Orlando 108-102. They're 27-39, 5-5. In the last 10, they've lost 3 in a row. They're 10th seed right now. They're 1.5. They're 1.5 games out of the 9th spot with the Lakers. 1.5 games up on Portland and 2 games up on the Spurs. So we'll pick up basketball next week because I want to stay with football for a few more minutes.
I want to say this.
Make a comment.
Man, Austin Clunch, what he's done at Nicholls State.
God.
When he
I
got
saw that game on Saturday. Let me tell you, that's a hell of a team.
When he got hard, I knew him. He was an assistant coach.
Right.
Okay, Richie Raleigh was there. Man, Richie was bigger than life personality. I knew he wasn't going to stay at Nicholls long. Goes to South Alabama. And so I didn't know who they were going to hire. But Ricky Broussard, long time, Nicholls State, coached at LSU and all that. I told him, I said, Coach, what are they going to do? He said, they're going to hire Austin. I said, how old is he? He said, Mike, I think he's 28 years old, but he said, I think he's a really good coach. Back-to-back Southland Conference championships. And man, Ty Gordon has been unbelievable for them. And so, man, congratulations to them. Also to Coach Kiefer at Southeastern. Nothing against what Coach Schlesch has done, because he's done a fantastic job. And man, he got a couple players there too that are unreal. But man, what Coach Kiefer has done at Southeastern has flown under the radar here, because so much attention has been put on Nicholls. Well, I mean, that's hard for me to say, but it is true. And also what Coach Schlesch has done at UNO, that Coach Kiefer sort of has flown under the radar. He's been stealth with it. They end up in the 2 spot. And also to what Hunter's done at Tulane, because I mean, come on, you knew what he took over was not much of anything, and he's done a great job of rebuilding that program. Man, I wonder about
you got to hold on to him.
You better hold on to him.
I'm telling you, that from what we understand, George is lurking.
But you wonder a little bit about Will Wade now. With the allegations.
I want to get to that next. I want to get to Jalen Daniels, and I want to get to that next, because that is critical. All right, Jalen Daniels, your thoughts on him coming to LSU, former ASU quarterback. Is it an indictment on the quarterback room, or is it just quality depth?
Man, if I had a chance to get Jaden Daniels, I'm taking him.
Me too.
At the end of my draft book, 2021, people saw I had him listed. Because, man, he really played well. His first 2 years there. Last year, he got beat up. The offensive line was 2 words, lousy. I mean, they were bad. He was hitting receivers dead in the hands, going through their. I mean, I saw one game that I watched. It goes through receiver's hands twice and hits him right in the face mask here. Come on, what do you want him to do? And I think he got frustrated, and he sees the program slowly peeling apart, because Herm did a good job.
He did.
But now, man, all kind of allegations of recruiting violations, everything else, and Jaden's like, I want to tag and get out. And I think he took a look at LSU and said, you know what, I'm going to go there. And you think about Miles's history with injuries. That is going to be one heck of a battle between him and Miles Brennan. I never believed that baloney. Now, some of these guys who always want to get Max Johnson's dad on, pat him on the back, that was real competition. Come on. Oh, because he could run. How many times you saw Max Johnson run last year? None. He wasn't running. So, in essence, they were dissing Miles, because I talked to Coach O and I talked to some of the assistant coaches. They never told me that Max Johnson's ahead of Miles Brennan until he got hurt.
He got injured,
and so my thing about it is they were trying to sell you a bill of goods that they couldn't cash. But but it gets some attention. Jaden is a different guy. Man, he can throw the football well. He's tough. He's got great leadership skills. I talked to Kevin Mawai, who was at one time on that staff. Now he's with the Colts. And he told me, man, Mike, can he play? And he said he can throw the football very accurately from the pocket. And so, I mean, that's a big key.
That's huge.
He stayed away from the interceptions the first 2 years, which you wouldn't think would be for a young quarterback. And he was really good. He's an NFL prospect at quarterback.
That's all you need to know right there.
So those 2 guys are going to go at it.
And then you have to figure out what's kind of with Nussmeier. Will he stay? I don't think Howard's going anywhere. And mention to see, okay, Notice of allegation was given to LSU this week. They can answer the allegations, but no appeals on again, the situation with both football, basketball, lack of institutional control on the university because of the sexual assaults. Football, the Our Lady of the Lake situation, a few others. Basketball, obviously the FBI wiretap with Will Wade saying he was given a strong blank offer to Smart. The Independent Accountability Resolution Process has had the case since 2020 with combined investigations into men's basketball, football. Now, LSU's attempted to separate those investigations were denied by the NCAA. So now you're in a situation where do you give up basketball and Will Wade for football? And I think it's a no-brainer. I just think that Will Wade at this point is probably coaching his last year with LSU because you can't, there is no appeal here. So only thing you can do is negotiate it. And you're going to have to negotiate that. And look, the NCAA has had a bullseye on Will Wade for a long time. The issue is, again, NIL is made this legal now. So again, now you're trying to be able to penalize someone for something that is now legal. What do you think happens? We got about a minute and a half left.
I don't see how Will survives this unless they would win big.
Right.
But I don't know how he survives it.
I don't either.
And my thing about it is, and him and I have had this conversation, that if they fired a coach that won a national championship 2 years ago, what's going to happen with you?
Come on.
And you not his guy.
You're not Woodward's guy.
You're not Woodward's guy.
Right. And Woodward knew that coming in, that eventually he was going to make a move. He changed his contract to make it easier for them to be able to get out. They can get out for cause.
Yeah. And so I think Will's been a good coach there.
I agree.
Great recruiter.
No doubt.
But man, he's caught in the triangle now, and I don't know how, Eric, he would survive this.
I don't either. I think you're doing whatever you got to do to save football. You don't want to have lack of institutional control where they can go in and check every little nook and corner of your program. So and right now Kim Mulkey's got women's basketball at its highest high. So I think you could get away with, again, maybe letting a Will Wade go and starting fresh.
I agree with you. And you have a potential star coach in baseball.
Right. Yes.
Jay Johnson.
Great point.
And so now your deal is, man, I'm not giving that up to try to save my basketball program. No. And people say, yeah, but look how great Will's recruited. You might lose those guys.
Doesn't matter.
My thing is, he cut ties with Ed Orgeron, and he knew he was going to lose recruits. So it's not like his first rodeo.
No.
So I hate to say it, but I think we're watching the final days of Will Wade.
I agree with you. I don't see how again, when you don't have an appeal process, that means you can only negotiate. And at this point, there's negotiations. Scott Woodward's a heck of a negotiator. We know that. Again, but I got a feeling he's going to save the other programs and just let the basketball program fall on the sword.
And it's follow the money.
Right.
Follow the money.
That's a great point.
And man, listen, don't think that doesn't come into play. That I'm not going to give that up. Potentially postseason games and all this.
Right.
And maybe I'd have to have someone who sacrifices, and it's Will.
It is, no doubt. They've already self-imposed sanctions on their football team already. They've done that. So they're clear there. I don't think there's any doubt, Mike. I agree with you. This is it. This is the last hurrah for Will Wade. I think he knows it too.
Yeah, I think he's well aware.
I think he knows it too. Mike, thanks as always.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate
always
it,
great
buddy.
to have you on the program. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's plenty of ways to be able to catch our program now. There's a rebroadcast tonight at 6 p.m. on WLAE-TV, 10 p.m. on The Deuce. Friday night, 9 o'clock, Pelican Sports Television, 10 o'clock on WLE. Saturday morning at 2 a.m. on The Deuce, 5 p.m. on Pelican Sports Television. So plenty of ways to catch the program. Also, again, you can catch me on the radio 4 to 6 on 106.1 FM. Again, that's you can listen live at ericasher.com. Also, don't forget about the Anchor app, which is where our podcast is. We're on all podcasting apps now, so you can check that out as well. Our website is ericasher.com, so you can check that out as well. We got a brand new deal for you guys. You're seeing on the screen now. It's a QR code. Stick your phone up on toward the screen, and again, you can click on the WLAE-TV YouTube page or ericasher.com, and it'll take you right to those particular sites. So again, you'll never miss an opportunity to be able to catch the radio show or the TV show easily right there on your smartphone. Again, special thanks to William Hill for putting that together. Fantastic as always. Special thanks to our underwriters, also the WLAE production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Sarah Ignis, Logan Graffia, also Alex Chacon,